Perhaps before we move on to more advanced techniques, it would be wise to highlight some of the equipment involved in the sport today. One of the first things you are going to need to play the game of pool successfully is a good quality cue. It is important to have your own cue, look after it, and use no other. Most pool cues in the United Kingdom are manufactured from the wood of the English ash tree, which has long been prized for its straight grain and stability. Only the finest grade of timber is suitable to craft cues of the highest quality demanded by the top pool players of today. Unfortunately, in this day and age of mass industrial wood production, it is becoming progressively more difficult to obtain. Once the cue maker has tracked down and selected a fine piece of ash, the rough block goes through many machining stages before it finally begins to resemble the desired shape. The wood is then sanded and hand-finished to create a smooth, attractive and well-balanced cue. Each and every pool cue is thoroughly checked for quality by skilled craftsmen. All the brass joints must be working smoothly and the shaft has to be perfectly straight and true. Nothing is overlooked before the finished cue is given its final seal of approval. The cue maker's skill is wasted if the player doesn't take care of their cue. Don't resort to sanding to remove the natural build-up of grease and dirt on the shaft. If the wood does become sticky during play, the most effective solution to counteract the problem is to clean your cue with a soft, damp cloth and dry immediately. This method ensures a good, smooth cue action and will definitely prolong the life of what is, after all, a valuable piece of equipment. On no account should a cue be left leaning against a chair like this when not in use. It's asking for trouble. Leaving an expensive piece of equipment unattended in a pub is an accident waiting to happen, and you would only have yourself to blame when it does. A good cue should last a lifetime, so look after it. The answer is to store your cue in a top-quality hard case. Foam-lined aluminium models are best as they not only serve to protect the cue from extremes in temperature, but are also very strong and can withstand severe knocks. The brass ferrule at the tip end of the cue is to prevent the cue shortening prematurely through constant retipping over the years. It also adds strength to a piece of wood that is only 8 to 10 millimeters thick and could obviously quite easily split, as the power generated on contact with the cue ball is considerable. The tip is perhaps the most important part of any cue and is a constant worry to a lot of players. You'll find the more competent the player, the more worried they become. Some beginners tend to forget how important the tip is, but it must be remembered it is the only part of the cue that is permitted to touch the cue ball, so it has to be just right. If you look at a row of cues standing in the rack of any club, you will find tips in all shapes and sizes. Some are rounded, some are flat, some are very soft, others extremely hard. The ideal tip can only be fitted by an expert. It should be springy in holding so it can bite on the white ball. A good tip can make some of the shots we have seen a far sight easier. It is no good having a fine cue with a perfectly fitted tip if you forget the importance of chalk. A very good habit to get into is to remember to chalk your cue before every shot, however easy. It will also serve to remind you to take stock of the situation at the table before you get down to play. This is something that is often neglected, as we saw earlier. If you are merely playing in a friendly match down the pub, it is all too easy to forget the consequences of not using chalk. However, as it only takes a couple of seconds, there really is no excuse for not doing it. Any player who fails to chalk their cue before striking the white brings upon themselves the increased chance of miscuing and the resulting loss of face and confidence. The chalk is very important to help the cue tip make good contact with the white, a vital factor for successful cue ball control. Modern science is now a dominant force in the production of all types of sporting equipment, and pool cues are no exception. Cue makers today have many technical advantages, with computer-controlled design and engineering responsible for the development of high-specification cues that can make the player's task a great deal easier. As we have already seen, Jason plays with probably the most technologically advanced cue available, as befits a player of his caliber. It is not only professionals, however, that have benefited from this introduction of modern designs. All players, regardless of their ability, have found that using the latest high-tech pool cues really can improve their standard of play and increase their enjoyment of the game. It is important to realize that you don't necessarily need to be one of the world's best players to use one of the world's best cues.